The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
Welcome back, everybody, and it's time now to introduce this evening's featured guest. I'm very excited to have him back on the show, and especially on this new format. Of course, I'm talking about Barney Adams. He's the CEO of Breakthrough Golf Technology, and he was the founder of Adams Golf back in 1988, which, of course, specialized in custom-fitted golf clubs. The company gained national recognition following the groundbreaking success of the Titleized Fairy Woods, which revolutionized the way golfers approach their long game. This innovation propelled Adams Golf to rapid growth and earned Barney the Manufacturing Entrepreneur of the Year award from Ernst & Young. His contributions to the sport were further recognized when he received the Ernie Sabarak Award for the PGA of America for his lifetime impact on the golf industry. And he's led the company as chairman of the board until 2012 when TaylorMade acquired Adams Golf. And here we are, fast forward a few more years, and he's now the CEO of Breakthrough Golf Technology. So, Barney, welcome to Golf Talk Live. I appreciate you coming and joining me.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a real quick question because I think I might have messed that up. Is that how you pronounce Ernie's last name?
Ernst & Young, as far as I know.
No, Ernie Sabarak.
Oh, Ernie Sabarak.
Sabarak.
Yeah,
I knew it was close. So. Okay, I got it close enough. I apologize if I didn't.
No.
So I want to ask you, first off, just sort of a general golf question. I know there's a lot of things we want to talk about tonight, but you've obviously been around golf for a while now.
A long while.
Well, I'm not going to get into age specific, but you've been around the industry for a long time. Did you ever imagine seeing some of the changes in golf that we're seeing now, particularly with equipment? Obviously, I'm talking about. Obviously, there's a lot of other changes, but with equipment, from what you saw, 20, 30 years ago and beyond to what it is now, did you ever imagine that we would be where we are today?
Well, yes and no. Frankly, let's say the equipment hasn't changed as much as the marketing departments would have you believe it's changed.
Right.
You can, and I've done this, you can find 10, 15-year-old clubs and have people hit them. Same results. They might be a little more consistent and they might be a little bit better here and there, but it's not like, a gas engine versus an electric engine, for example.
Sure. Yeah. There's been certainly a lot of changes in the looks of the equipment from what we used to swing many years ago. But you're right, and I've proved exactly what you're saying. I can remember, as being a teaching professional for years, I can remember, students coming up and with a flashy new driver and all excited, but they couldn't hit it. And I said, you had that great driver before. Why'd you get rid of it? Well, I wasn't hitting it as far, and I grabbed that old driver and I'd hit it a mile out there. And I say, well, maybe it's not the driver.
It's the driver.
Yeah, it's the driver. And
yeah.
It proved exactly what you're talking about is, and again, obviously there's been some changes. I want to, certainly be before upfront here that there has been certainly some changes in technology and that, but ultimately it's how you utilize the equipment.
And the changes, by the way, are let's say skill oriented. In other words, the better players appreciate the changes more than, say, bums like me. Same old stuff.
Yeah. Well, they see the biggest results and differences. I know and just to go to the marketing point you were talking about, I can remember for years, manufacturers talking about, 10, 20, 30 extra yards, which wasn't happening for the average golfer. Now for the tour pros, they might have seen those gains, but the average guy wasn't. Talk about, and I'm just going to call them for BGT for short, just to save time, but breakthrough golf technology. You guys obviously have some incredible shaft technology, and obviously you're competing against so many other competitors out there. What makes your product different? What is it difference with your shafts than what a lot of the stuff out in the market? Because there's a lot of good
Well,
stuff out there, but you guys have got some incredible stuff.
yeah, I mean, our philosophy starts with the golfer. Doesn't start with the product. It starts with the golfer. We
Right.
take, I'm an old range rat. That's where I grew up, was on the driving range, custom fitting 30 years ago, and so on and so forth. And it all starts with, okay, if this club supposed to be good, or this shaft is supposed to be good, or this putter is supposed to be good, let's go to the grass. Let's find out. And if we don't get the kind of results we want, then it's not our product.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And you really have to try things out. A lot of people, a lot of golfers, that's, I think, one of the number one things. And this is why I'm going to prompt my next question is, and I'm talking about from a general golfer's position, how do they decide which is the right shaft for them? I mean, obviously you have to be fitted and things like that. You have to try things out, but how do they know what they need to be looking for in the first place? Because there's a lot of confusion with golfers out there. They don't know what they really need. And yeah, you can market them to death with stuff, but the truth of the matter is, what do they need to really be looking for? And if you want to give an example of maybe take a handicap range and just say, if you're 25 handicap, these are the things that you should be looking for in your shaft, if you want to use that as an example.
Well, it's all ball flight.
Okay.
I mean, if I go to the range with you, and I mean, it's not much different than my old days when I was a fitter. I go to the range with you and I got a club, and the objective for the club is for you to get the ball up in the air with your swing, which is I've taken into consideration, and you do. It's over. That's it. That's as good as I can do.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. If it's a professional player, then we might be talking about the relative ability to work the ball a little bit, because that's more their game. Or, of course, the infamous cause, or the infamous factor, is distance. Distance sells golf clubs more than anything else, 5-1. People want to hit it further.
Yeah.
And so the question isn't hitting it further per se. Is it hitting one further and 4 into the trees?
Yeah.
Maybe that's not so good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's hitting one good, maybe not quite as far, but one good, but the other 4 are in play.
Right.
That's a much better product. It's that kind of stuff.
I want you to talk about, because again, this is again, I'm coming from the industry's standpoint. A lot of people have heard flex point in the shaft. You got your low, high, and medium sort of flex points. Most golfers couldn't tell you what one means from the other. What is the difference, and how does it apply? Is it based on the speed of the swing? How does it decide what flex point is right for what golfer, or does it matter?
Well, I'm going to give you a kind of an off-the-wall answer. The most successful set of irons in the history of the golf industry were the Ping Eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously their flex point would be applicable, following your statement. Every Ping Eye iron ever made in the history of time had an X shaft in it. What the hell has that got to do with flex point?
Right. True.
Might be in the marketing department.
Yeah, I think that's another one. But you know what? This is the thing that I'm getting at is, you hear them talk about so much of this stuff. And again, I know it's marketing. I mean, I know this and you know this because we're in the business, but for the average Joe out there that goes out and they start talking about this, or they're, questioning it, maybe they're out and doing a demo day or something, and they're hearing all these buzzwords thrown at them, and they don't really understand what it means. And obviously there are going to be some differences, but again, it's at a higher level. The average golfer is not swinging the club fast enough really to benefit from some of the things,
or consistently enough.
Or consistent enough, of course. That's the other adage. But so it really doesn't matter as much for the average golfer, correct?
No, I don't think so. I used to experiment with this all the time when I was a club fitter, and I'd take a guy that was, say, a 20 handicap and not very much club speed, and give him a club with a shaft in it. And I'd tell him it was a very soft shaft to fit his swing, and I'd be lying. It would have an X in it.
Right.
And he'd hit it and go, hey, that's pretty good,
Right.
and so on.
Like the
So
placebo effect.
so it's it, it's all up to the individual. If the feedback to the individual is positive, I don't care what the flex is, to be honest with you. And I don't really. I'm going to tell you how dumb I am. I have a 3-way. It's a new product for us, but we'll skip that. And I really liked it. And then I got to the point where I was having trouble hitting it. I was having trouble up in the air. So I convinced myself that I needed to reshaft it, and I went out and reshafted it. Now, how dumb is that?
Yeah.
But, I'm just another golfer. So I hit it today. I hit it pretty good. I said, aha, I was right. The shaft makes all the difference until tomorrow.
When it happens again. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and that's, I've done a lot of corporate golf and taught a lot of corporate executives and that. And one of the things that always used to make me laugh was I would see them come out at the beginning of the season. They'd want to get a tune up and they'd be walking in with some new equipment. And I can think of one, I won't get into specifics, and he walked in with new equipment. And I remember from last season that he was struggling to, break 100.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't want to practice, didn't have time, was too much in the boardroom. And I said, listen, you've got to start getting serious with the game if you want to improve. And he came in with a chunk of equipment that would just cost, and he had money. I mean, it wasn't an issue of money, and I said to him quite bluntly, I said, listen, I'm looking, just doing a quick tally, you're looking at about $3,000 worth of equipment, including the bag. I said, for a third of that, I could have gotten you just as good of equipment, probably less than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you could have taken the other $2,000 and bought your wife another piece of jewelry.
Right.
And twice as happy as with that news. Because I said, what's the point? And again, I know he had the money, but the point was that he was not able to get out there and really capitalize on that. And I just see that all the time. I mean, you see it go down to the PGA show. And again, I'm not trying to, slam the industry, but you see that every year and they're coming out and the drivers are getting more expensive and this is getting more expensive. And the average person can't hit it.
I just came from, I won't mention their name, but one of the new custom fitting centers, because they do some reshafting for me and so on. And I heard him tell the guy that, look, you want to get you told me you want to get a whole set, woods, irons, bag, the whole deal. It'll be about $8,000 or $9,000. And I'm going, what? But that's the world that we live in. It's almost like the more you paid, and there's a company out there, by the way, that revolves around this. The more you paid, the better they must be.
Yeah, I know.
And by the way, if you want to help those guys, I keep track of weird stuff. At the driving range, I count how long player X goes to the driving range before he pulls out his driver.
Mm-hmm.
He hits about 6 chips, and what he ought to be doing is hitting mostly chips, because he's not going to hit the greens anyway. If he really wants to play better, score better,
right?
But they want to hit it further.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you're battling uphill against multi-millions of dollars of marketing, and
yeah, it's a marketing business.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, but all right. So let's get on to your new putter line, Paradox. This is something exciting, very, very different from what I've seen. And I've seen a lot of stuff on the market. Talk about some of the unique features here. Obviously, it's available in mallet or blade. And what sort of was the thought behind the development of this? And what were some of the features that we can expect to see?
I'd say in one word, torque. But what you want in a putting stroke is you want to return the face to the ball square. If you're a putting instructor and I'm not returning the face to the ball square, you got a problem.
Right.
Because, I'm just not going to be very good. Well, if you look, like, remember the old putters, the Walter Hagens, for example, or the mallet heads of today, they're 3 times heavier.
Yeah.
And the shafts haven't changed that much over the last zillion years. So you've got more weight wanting it during the stroke, which makes the shaft twist a little bit, oscillate a little bit, because they're disproportional. So this system, I won't go into it because it's very complicated, but it's called principal access. But basically what it says is that when you have a bunch of weight at the end of a rod, it's not going to move. Mm-hmm. And you design the shaft. This is what you have to do to make it happen. So the putter is very, very, very consistent, And that's all you can ask for. The best putters in the world don't make half.
Right.
You look at the data, the pros on tour, they don't make 50%. They make maybe 40 something percent. So it's a game of misses.
Yeah.
And I always would tell people putting, if you think you will, you will. And if you think you won't, you won't.
Yeah.
Attitude. This is to give the player that confidence, that solid feel that he thinks he's going to make more.
Yeah, attitude is definitely a lot to do with it for sure, and we see that as instructors. I mean, I see people coming all the time, and I always joke around. It's like going to the airport. I see people, dragging their baggage up to get ready to go on the flight. I see the same thing, at the golf course, and I'm not talking about their golf clubs. I'm just talking about all the emotional baggage from bad rounds, moving from one hole to another. They just had a bad par 3, and they're bringing all of the bad memories and the bad thoughts and the swing thoughts and whatnot, and they're stepping up on the tee, and then they're wondering why they're not, making a good swing because they're thinking about 2 holes ago or the last hole or whatever the game is. So
I wrote a story about this because I was asked, is golf fun? You got to play golf because it's fun. I said, that's baloney. Golf is not fun. Golf is hard. It's very, very, very hard. But as a result, it's also very rewarding. And that's the thing that keeps you coming back. I did another experiment, for a better part of 2 years, because I lived on a golf course and I could get over to the range. What was the best shot you hit last time you played? I always got an answer, and I always got an answer fast. Oh, I hit a 7-iron on number 14. God, it was beautiful, or a tee, whatever. That's the rewarding part, and that's what brings people back to the game.
It's funny. That reminds me of a very interesting story. Jack Nicklaus never talked about his bad shots, never. And
right.
I remember he got almost, I won't say angry, but he got agitated in an interview one time, and he says, "Why are you asking me about that?" He said, I don't remember that shot, or I don't remember that round, or what have you. And to further prove your point, is he was always focused on what he did right. He wasn't focused on what he did wrong. And if he needed to work on something, he went up to the range and he worked on something, but he didn't sit there and dwell on it. And that's where a lot of golfers fall into that trap.
I'll give you a name that you'll remember: Mo Norman.
Oh yeah,
I used to play golf with Mo.
I played down times.
All right, so you know what he was like.
Oh, I know.
And exactly. I'm watching him hit balls one day, and it was ridiculous. So they're almost bouncing off of each other, just one after another. And then he hit one a little heavy. And the guy standing next to me said, "Hey, Mo, a couple shots ago, you hit that one a little bit heavy. What did you think about?" And Mo wheels around and says, "Think about? That's a bad shot. I don't think about bad shots. I only think about good shots." And he wheels back around and starts hitting balls again.
Yeah,
it's the same answer.
Yeah, Mo was an interesting character. I can remember I only played with him a couple times. I actually met him through somebody else, and I remember I was up on a range back up in Canada, and Mo, of course, came over. He was going to be looking for play around with his friend, and the gentleman's name was Nick Westlock.
Oh, yeah, I know Nick.
Yeah, and so Nick and I were there, and we were going to get out. So he said, Mo, do you want to join us? So, of course, he did. Well, I was hitting a few balls on the range, and Nick had said to Mo, he said, Ted's, struggling a little bit here. He said, what advice could you give him? And he said, well, what are you hitting? And I said, I'm hitting my 7-iron. He said, well, and Mo grabbed his, and he went out there, and I said, what am I doing wrong here? What do I need to do? And Mo, without missing a beat, walked up, hit about 3 or 4 7-irons, just like you say, bouncing off of one another.
Yeah.
He turned to me, didn't say, grip it this way. He said, do that. And then he,
Yeah.
I mean, so, and it's true. I mean, obviously, there was more to it, but that's how he looked at it. And that's how I think a lot of golfers, unfortunately. So I want to go back to the putters, because I want to give you a good opportunity to really dive into them a little bit more on that. So obviously, I mean, torque is a big thing. What about the design of the putters themselves, the putter head I'm talking about? Was there anything unique about that or different?
Well, they got every mallet head in the world is different than the other ones, and so they look different. Honest answer, I struggled with I prefer the mallet. I'm a mallet putter. And so I preferred that one. So I went in that direction, and I struggled with it at the beginning. And I thought, that thing is, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But the more I hit it, and the more I realized how consistent I was, then it started looking good. So whether it looks good or looks bad or whatever is really a factor of where the golf ball goes. Because the message coming back to you is, hey, you just hit 6 putts from 15 feet and you're 6 inches from the hole. That's better. That's better than you are. Yeah. So that's how it looks. So we have we have a blade and a mallet, and we have more coming, because it's a beauty in the eyes of the beholder thing. I mean, you've had this happen. Guy will show you his putter, and look at this thing, isn't it beautiful? You look at it, go, my God, I wouldn't touch that.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, I've demoed a few of them, and let me tell you, I put them back in that sleeve real quick.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, some of them are pretty crazy, but I think what it boils down to. So when you're sitting, in your office or at home, and the wheels are turning upstairs there, and you're thinking,
and always are, unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately, great minds are tough to shut down, and that's both a blessing and a curse, unfortunately, for the individual. But what do you think about, like, when you want to see breakthrough golf be successful?
Mm-hmm.
What is it you're thinking about? I mean, obviously you have to market the products and all that kind of stuff, but we talked.
I'll tell you exactly the answer, because I just went through this the other day. I want people to know that they can't go wrong using our stuff.
Yeah.
They might prefer something else. That's fine. I understand whatever the reasons are, but they know that if they use our products, they're engineered as well as they could be. They're tested, and they do what we say they would do.
Yeah, and
that's my goal.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for. I mean, that's really what you want is you want to, whatever product you buy, but particularly from your standpoint, is you want people, when they walk away and they're using your product, whether it's one of the shafts or whether it's the putter or another product, you want them to know that it's not just, well, they say it does that, it does what they say it does.
Yeah.
And that's
a funny story. I think it was about 5 or 6 putters. We sent them out to individuals that test putters and so on to get feedback. They wouldn't return them. He said, "Yeah, and furthermore, it's in the bag, and don't ask."
When their number goes out of service, you know that you're not getting your club. Yeah. And they've moved twice. And that speaks volumes. But obviously everybody wants their company to do well. But I think people that approach this from a development standpoint, that develop their equipment, have a uniqueness, because there's sort of a special bond with that equipment. It's not just here I'm working for this company. You're actually developing the products. You're actually getting your hands dirty, so to speak. And
we're all the same too. Our guys all think the conversations are all similar. It's about, is this better for the golfer? Because if it isn't, don't waste my time.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great and all that kind of stuff, but if it's not going to do what you want it to do, and the golfer is ultimately not going to see value out of it, they might as well just hang that up on the shelf and go and get something else.
Yeah, it's called a wow factor in the old days. When I was a custom fitter, I'd give them a call, wow, this really hits good. That was a big deal.
Oh yeah,
because that getting to the heart and soul of the golfer, so they would say, wow, this is good. I'm thinking, that's good. That's where I want to be.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I wanted to ask you this, and as we are moving into a newer age, if you will, a technology age, I think where I'm going to go with this one, but is AI going to become, do you think, a game changer? I mean, it already is in some ways, and if so, how do you see that? What role do you think AI is going to play in what you're doing?
Well, and again, that's a recent conversation I had with one of my old friends. All my friends are old, so it's.
I hear you. I'm getting there too. So I hear you.
I don't like what I see.
Yeah.
I don't like golf. I just read an article in the local paper. I live in Colorado. The local paper about golf facilities that aren't golf courses. So we've got hitting into screens and nets and so on and so forth. That to me is not golf. I'm not interested in those places. I know they're very accurate, and this is maybe a little of a diversion off of AI, but it's still the high technology approach is what you're talking about.
Right.
Another buddy of mine just got back from 2 weeks of playing the old course in St. Andrews.
Right.
And to me, that's as good as it gets. I mean, that's just old fashioned walk, great, here it is, and so on and so forth. You can't avoid AI. It's magic. I mean, I can't even begin to understand how it works, but I still prefer the grass of a range and the grass of a golf course.
From a equipment standpoint, though, do you think it will play a role in the development? And
minor. It'll play a bigger role in the ads than it will in the development.
Okay. So from a marketing standpoint, it's going to be
yes, AI design wedges, hit the ball within 5 feet every time, and so on and so forth.
I like it. I love that. I'm the same way. I had an earlier segment on my show tonight, and we were talking. We have a panel discussion, and we were talking about golf instruction from say 30 years ago to what it is today. And of course, you've had an onslaught of technology. And one of the things, and again, I know it has a role and it has a place, but I've found, and now it's starting to move a little bit in a different direction, but one of the concerns I always had was that people, and I'm talking about instructors now, were getting so entrenched in the technology that they were looking at a monitor all the time. They weren't even paying attention to their student. Right. And a lot of students got frustrated. And, it's not like, hey, I'm over here hitting balls. Go ahead, round up another one, go ahead and hit another one. And they're looking at the numbers.
Well, if the ball's not getting up to its normal height. Well, have you noticed that the guy never gets back over to his left side? That might have something to do with it, and so on.
Right, exactly. And they're just basing it on the numbers, and that's what I worry a little bit about with AI, and that again, I think there's going to be a place for it, but at the same time, I worry, and that's why I wanted to get your thoughts. Is do you see that? And I'm sure some of them are already doing it, where some of the manufacturers are going to get into a very adaptive approach.
Oh, and you're
going to see them where everything is going to be designed, created, manufactured, and that, and you're not going to have that sort of personal, input from someone like yourself who has a lot of experience and understands what golfers really want, because the machine doesn't really. It's just basing it on and something that was mentioned earlier, and I want to get your take on this. I think you'll agree 100% with this too. Is who's going to program it? Somebody has to give them the information, and if you have, somebody from, a box store over here that says, okay, we want to standardize the equipment, so we're going to program AI to look at it from these. I mean, you talked about ping earlier. Look what happened with ping some years ago. That could very easily happen with AI. Do you see that as being a concern?
Well,
potential concern.
I think an honest answer is, first off, I think it's over my head, to be very honest with you. My opinion, for what it's worth, is that you're playing with fire, and you better be very, very, very careful. And you just can get so entrenched and so carried away that you forget the damn business that you're in. And so I always say, how's the golf ball doing? Because that's where your answer is. Yeah. I'll tell you, it's sort of similar, but I'll tell you a Mo Norman story. This is a place called the Royal Oak Country Club in Titusville, Florida, which is outside of Orlando.
Yeah.
It was owned by the Canadian BGA in those days, a long time ago. And my mom lived in the area, so I would go down and I'd stay with her. She was widowed. And then I go to the PGA show, which wasn't very far away. And I go over to Royal, and that's where I met Mo, was at Royal Oak. And as you know, Mo was not an easy guy to meet or talk to.
No.
But I was a hockey fan. And once he found out I was a hockey fan, I was in. That was it. Hey, how you doing? So on and so forth. So I'm watching him hit balls. And I'm thinking, for the way this guy hits the golf ball, a standard product is not going to work best for him. So I didn't say anything to him. I went back and made some irons. I think they weren't D5s. I think they were G5s or something. I mean, the heads were really, really heavy.
Yeah.
And I made them, and did all the other stuff and so on. I went back to Mo and I said, "Give this a whack, will you?" And he took them. He put them right. He said, "These are great." And that was it. I made his clubs from there on in.
Right.
But they were the clubs for the player, and that's the point I keep making over and over again. It was, oh my gosh, I could tell the difference. I could, this. He was so strong and so consistent in what he was, as you know, he was freakily strong.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an old thing that says, I don't know if you know his background.
Yes, I do.
People consider him to be autistic or something like that, but he was not. He was sliding down the hill in a toboggan with his friend, lost track, went out and got run over by a truck.
Yep.
And he went home that night, and he was actually dribbling blood from his nostril, but he went home, and, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So he went to bed, but he was never the same after that. So the argument can be that he had brain damage, but he was never diagnosed formally for it and so on. But he was so physically strong because he loved to pinch you. God, I had black and blue marks all over me when he gave me those damn things. But I thought, okay, then I got to make clubs for him.
Yeah.
Not clubs for clubs, but clubs for him because he's different. And I did.
Yeah, and that's the same. That's you're seeing more and more now with instruction as well. I mean, and this is one of the things we talked about earlier, is that for years they were sort of doing a cookie cutter approach where everybody was being taught the same, putting in the same mold, the same methods and whatnot. And finally people realized that, hey, everybody's different, just like you were talking with Mo. And that's so true. And it is with the equipment. What are you most excited about Paradox putters? What's the most exciting thing for you? I mean, obviously you want
square face and impact, the consistency. I mean, that's what putting is. It's about being consistent. If you hit one 2 inches from the hole from 30 feet, and you hit the next one 10 feet from the hole at 30 feet, it might be an issue there. So I want to give somebody something that they're consistent with, and that's what I noticed with it. Because I fought it at the beginning. The head just didn't look like I was used to, and I was fighting it. But the consistency of the ball roll kind of got through to me, and now I like it. Now I understand it, and I like it. And I think that's absolutely the key. And because I said before, putting, the best players in the world, I think it was from 4 feet, make like 41% of their putts or something like that. You're not making everything. And anybody that tells you are is just not telling you the truth. They're lying to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want when the guy reaches for his putter or the lady reaches for her putter, I want her to feel confident. I want her to be glad that she's got it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that from a standpoint too, I think that people want to feel, when it comes to, you touched on short game and that earlier. More strokes are lost around the green, whether it's chipping or what have you. And, as an instructor, one of the most frustrating things is seeing people pulling their driver out in the driving range,
after 3 swings.
Yeah, 2 or 3 swings. And I always joke because I always go, when I go up and just, piddle around with my own game when I have a chance, is I go over around the green and the bunkers and stuff. There's nobody there.
It's empty. Yeah, that's right.
So
I same situation. We have a lovely practice green in our course. I think I've seen 2 people on it in the last 2 years.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's just it's amazing. So you said there's more stuff coming down the road under the Paradox line. What's anything you can share, or is this something that you're
putter designs?
Okay.
I mean, because again, it's races for horses. I'm not a big fan of blade putters. So if we made a line of blade putters, guys like me wouldn't be very good customers.
Right.
Conversely, mallet and so on. So you want to have different variations in the blade and mallet categories, and that gives you a broader appeal. Putters are a $3 billion a year business, irrespective of the rest of the clubs in the bag. So they're certainly worth spending time and effort on, and that's what you do.
Would this be an accurate statement? Obviously, when golfers get fitted for their clubs, but many golfers don't get fitted for a putter. Would that be accurate? Is that something, if you were speaking with a group of, and I'm sure you've done this many times, a group of average golfers out there, what would you say to them when it comes to selecting a putter? And I mean, obviously, let's forget your putter for a second. But what would you say?
Well, two things. Yes, get fitted. Where is the ball to your eyes and your hands? That allows you to be consistent. Okay, and I could go on, blah blah blah. However, the two best putters I ever saw in my life did everything wrong. Everything wrong. The one guy would aim left of his target and block it, and the other guy would aim right of his target and pull it. So I got to pay attention to who I'm talking to, because that's the nature of the game. They didn't know or care if they were right or wrong. They knew this is what they did to make more putts, and they were great putters. So I've never forgotten that. That's the kind of thing that's really the heart and soul of golf, I think.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, this putter is perfect for you, and you have to have the ball here and your hands here and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Don't putt against my friend. He'll own you after a while.
Yeah, I had the pleasure years ago when they used to play the Canadian Open up at Glen Abbey, still in Oakville, Ontario. And I remember after the Open, when they opened it back up to the public, and I met a gentleman who was a veteran and had lost one arm through the services. And we went out and couldn't hit the ball very far. I mean, I launched it past him all the time, but man, he out-putted me on those greens. I joked and I used to call him one putt, because that's pretty much what he did with the green. Couldn't hit very far.
And you're not designing clubs for him.
No.
You're designing clubs that he can use, but you're not designing clubs for him, because the next guy is completely different.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. So, Barney, if people want to get more information, if the audience wants to learn more, or if they want to find out about how to go about getting a fitting for their Paradox putter, where do they go? Do you
online?
Okay,
that's a BTG Golf. I'm not very good with that stuff. I don't, pay much attention.
Website's breakthroughgolftech.com.
Yeah, Breakthrough Golf Technology. Yes, .com. It's a good website. I say that. I mean, what the hell am I going to say? But I thought I read it myself. Right. I thought, hey, this is interesting.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I hear you. I know exactly. So it's breakthroughgolftech.com is the website. Right. You can go and check it out. There's a lot of great videos on there. It gives you a little bit more in-depth explanation on some of the things that Barney touched on tonight. So obviously you couldn't get too technical on the show, but you can actually see them in the videos, and you can see the equipment there, and obviously all of the other shafts that are available through their company. So you, again, visit breakthroughgolftech.com is the website. And Barney, I want to thank you very much. If you want to hang tight for just a second, I'm going to wrap it up, and then we'll go. I want to, again, thank all of my guests, especially earlier on in the show. I want to thank John Decker and Clint Wright for joining me on the Coach's Corner panel. And then also a special thanks to my travel guests tonight, my good friend and co-host, Robert Kaufman, and also our special travel guest, Troy Mills from Jasper Park Lodge up in Canada. Their golf club is reopening first after the wildfires. So those that you're interested in visiting, go on up in that neck of the woods. And of course, my very featured guest tonight, Barney Adams from Breakthrough Golf. Thank you very much for joining me. But really appreciate it. And for those of you that want to tune in and watch the show afterwards, if you go to iGolf Sports YouTube channel or on Spotify, and if you want to listen just to the audio version, you can go to Spreaker.com, or basically wherever you listen to podcasts, you can check out this episode here. But on that note, I will see you guys next week right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great weekend.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.